What up? Alright, so I wanted to come and do my little Wheel of Time video over. I tried to make it on TikTok the other day, but my phone and storage space, they just not friends right now. So I'm gonna do the live on YouTube. And yeah, I probably really should. Either way, we'll see what it do. We'll see what it do. So, Wheel of Time, season 3, episode 8. Okay, I'm going to share the takeaways that I got from the show. Wheel of Time, season 3, episode 8, and I noticed that the ranking on the first one that I told y'all about, it increased next time I got on Prime. So I thought that was pretty. I thought that was cool. Anywho, they were so excited in their sit down after episode 8 when they were talking about they were doing it for 3 years. They were so proud, and it's a good show. They should be proud. But I just like Anyway, so episode number 8 on Wheel of Time season 3. So the biggest thing that I took away from the show, right, was Randall Thor. Okay, so Randall Thor is considered the Karakan. Y'all know. Y'all, this live now might not be a good idea only because I'm in between trees. It's gonna go in and out. So the first thing I took away was Randall, right? So Randall Thor was on this mission where he had to convince the people that he was the Karakan, okay? And so when he had to go through this, it was kind of like a portal, but he had to go through this situation to where he went back in time, right, to see all of his past. And so he had a task during that period. And every time he took a step forward, this is in the prior show, but every time he took a step forward, and I'm in between trees, so I could go in and out, just FYI. But in the prior episode, he had to go through where he had to complete this task, and the task took him back to that he had lived as that energy, I guess, because he had the same energy or spirit in each person or each life that he had. If he told the people what he wanted to tell, but what he wanted to tell the people was the truth. And it was interesting to me. It was a good takeaway because it was ended up setting them free. Now, the truth that he told them, that they were all sinners. And how interesting is that, right? Especially with the world today, especially with faith, if you are of the Christian faith, that all of us are sinners, right? We are all sinners. We have all fallen short of the glory of God, and we're advised to repent daily, right, for the different things that we do, because it's so easy to fall into sin. Even when we believe that we are walking the narrow path, it's easy for us to, I won't say it's easy when you're on a narrow path, but there are still different ways or different things that can lead to sin, right? And so repenting daily is good. And so when the people got told that they were sinners, this took them into a state of panic, because their beliefs, their cultural beliefs in those groups were that if they were a sinner, that they had to be exiled from the community that they were in. Kind of similar to our relationship with Christ, right? If we go and we got judgment day and Christ determines that we're sinners and whatever we did, he's not forgiven, then we get exiled from the kingdom of heaven, right? We don't get allowed into the kingdom of heaven. And it was the truth that set the people free. Once they accepted that, yes, they were all sinners, right? And once Rand had showed them that he had the power that was prophesied that a person would have who would come to lead them, right? Once he revealed that he actually had the power, the people kind of settled down and they accepted the truth, right? It was also interesting because ultimately being deemed as a sinner is a judgment, right? And sometimes judgments, when we hear people tell us things, sometimes they do feel like a judgment. But even in the judgment, that judgment set them free in that show. The truth set them free. And so in society today, it keeps mixing in a lot of lies, right? A lot of deception. And the lies and the deception that is mixed and intertwined within society is what's keeping people captive. It's what's keeping people in bondage. And until people realize that they are being deceived at the magnitude that they're being received, a lot more have realized it, thank the Lord. But they're going to continue to remain in bondage, and they won't be able to receive the full freedom that's available to them. Okay, so another takeaway that I got from the show, okay, there was a part in the movie, there was the character's name is Nineveh, and her character predominantly went throughout the show kind of healing people and just sharing advice, and she worked with herbs and different things like that. But she was the strongest out of all of the characters, out of all of those who had power. She was the strongest one that they had seen in years, right? Very, very strong. The only thing was that she feared her power. She didn't know how to fully control it, and so she would not use it, right? She would kind of run from it or be hesitant to utilize it because it was so powerful. She had used it before, and I think they kind of rattled her. But in the movie, in the show, she's placed in this position. They were out looking for these bracelets or this jewelry, and one of the ladies who started off on the light in the show, she actually ended up working for darkness, and she ran into Nineveh, and Nineveh took her time trying to get her to see the good within her. And the lady was basically like, you're really still trying to get me to change. But she was like, this is who I am. And that in itself is important, right? Because sometimes we as individuals who have that good light in us, right, who don't want to see anyone perish, sometimes people are just who they are, and they're not going to change because they have decided that this is who they are, and they want to be bad. They want to live in darkness. They enjoy whatever benefits or whatever desires that they are striving for, working in darkness or working against the light. Part of the work. You got to kind of accept it and move on, right? Some people are just doing their job. They don't want to get out of the darkness. They're enjoying where they're at. You got to accept that. Some people are just doing their job. And so,
in half a mile, turn left onto West Virginia 612 West. So,
the lady that was working for darkness, I forget what her character's name is, but she throws Nineveh into the ocean. Now, Nineveh gets thrown into this ocean, and she chains her, like she's wrapped in chains. I also want to say that Nineveh is considered a wisdom. Now, there is
Take the second left onto West Virginia 612 West, then turn right onto the ramp to Charleston.
Oh, this took me the back way. Now, there is wisdom mentioned in the Bible, and I have said before that wisdom is God's wife. However,
turn right onto the ramp to Charleston, then merge onto I-64 West.
If you have went down the Sophia rabbit hole that is on TikTok, hear me, okay? Anyway, so Nineveh is also a wisdom, but she's also the strongest channeler, right? She's the strongest channeler, but she fears her power. So she gets thrown in the ocean. She's chained up. She could have drowned, right? She did not drown. What saves her, from my perspective, if you watch the little director's clip or whatever they call it after the show, they said that it was Nineveh when she was younger. However,
continue on I-64 West for 19 miles.
However, in a prior clip or prior show or episode, it was her daughter. It was her daughter, right? And so the voice of her daughter crying out for help was what triggered her, right? It triggered her emotions of help or fear to make sure that her daughter was okay. And so her emotions triggered her gift. It unlocked her gift. And so sometimes we have to be mindful that there are some emotions that we need to feel or we need to utilize because it unlocks the gifts that's within us, and it helps us utilize what God has given us to use. Now I know this show is dealing with witchcraft and witchery, but I see stuff interestingly, so just track with me, okay? So Nineveh gets unlocked and she ends up parting the ocean. Now where else did we see a large body of water parted? Moses. Moses parted the Red Sea with his staff. And Nineveh is considered a wisdom. And wisdom is in the Bible. Alright, so I did this on top before they erased it. They didn't say there's a draft or nothing. They just wasn't considerate at all. I'm not playing. But the third thing that I took away, I had 4 before on TikTok. I just gave y'all 2. Was kind of 3, but 2. And what else did I take away from the show or that particular episode? That might have been it. So 1 was the truth will set you free. Rand went with his gut. Okay, I'll say that also. Rand went with his gut, right? He went with what his spirit was telling him in that situation, because he had people in his ear telling him not to tell the community the truth. Oh, that's what it was. He had people in his ear telling him not to tell the people the truth because they weren't ready for it. And we see that in the world today, where the deception is so easily penetrable in our community, because a lot of people have waken up, praise the Lord, but there are more that can be woken up. But for the ones who just are asleep, they don't want to accept the truth, or they have accepted so much of the deception that they have now rejected the truth. And so, interesting takeaway. All right, so the other thing that I got from the show, there were the Aes Sedai, right? These were a group of channelers that were in a tower. They had this like court or system going on, and these women were trained by other professionals or other Aes Sedai. And so when it came to the war, right, of light versus darkness, ultimately that's the in the movies. It's a war of light versus darkness, which you honestly see in a lot of movies or a lot of TV shows. It's a war against light and darkness. The tower where the Aes Sedai lived had got destroyed already. It had already got destroyed, so the Aes Sedai were outside of the tower, most of them, trying to find help or backup or other channelers, since most of the other channelers had died, to help them in their mission of this large battle of dark against light. And where they found their help was in a lowly place. And so a lot of the times people feel like because they don't have the status, because they don't have the level of success, because they don't have the network that others may have as far as how they obtain their success, or now that they have the success, they have the network. They found this community, this small community of people who their spaces, right? Their spaces were not set up like the affluent or the wealthy or the Aes Sedai, right? The Aes Sedai lived in a very nice part of area, wherever they were from, right? They lived in a nice area. But the village people, right? They were small, they were compact, and they were still doing things kind of behind or delayed compared to the Aes Sedai who were trained in this tower. But that's where they found their help at. They found their help in the smaller community, in the people that they probably would have looked over because they felt like they would not have the gifts. But ironically enough, most of the characters in the show, most of them came from lower communities, like the Two Rivers, I think is one of the areas there. Most of them came from that type of environment, but they just ended up in the tower somehow, right? They ended up where they were able to go to the school to get their training. And so sometimes your help comes from the place that you already overlooked, or that you would have naturally overlooked, because the people who they found that had these gifts in like the place of the Two Rivers or the other areas, right? They had these gifts and they knew how to use them, but they still had to get like little tweaks here and there from the Aes Sedai, who had the training from the tower, just to refine or to fine tune the gifts that they had. So sometimes the gifts are already there. We've already been using them. We've already been putting them to work. However, the interesting thing still is it's an emotion that typically triggers the use of the gift. Much like when God destroys, right? When God destroys a thing, right? It's an emotion. It's his anger. It's wrath that stirs up, and righteous anger is then stirred, and then you start to see all of these different plagues, right? You start to see all of this different destruction, all of these crazy things, because righteous anger has been stirred within God or within whoever, right? Because they're going to be two witnesses, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be anger that's going to stir them to utilize their gifts, right? That's what I think. But that's what kind of triggered the plagues too, right? It was an emotion. But in the show, you see that these people had gifts, but it was an emotion that used it. And then once they realized they had the gift and they could tap into it a little bit more, then you see where the Aes Sedai kind of gives them training to how they can use it just with their mind alone, how they can tap into it just with their mind and thinking on a certain thing. And so the other thing, right, is you see community pull together. You see community pull together for the battle. There were some different parts. That was in the prior show. That wasn't at 8. All right, y'all. I think that's all I got for episode 8, season 3. Let me think. Let me make sure I didn't miss nothing. It was one other character in the movie, though. It was one other event that happened. Oh, I forget Buddy's name, but the character in the movie, he blows the horn. I think this is episode 8. I hope it's episode 8. It might be 7, but either way, I'm gonna speak on it. There was a character in the movie that blew a horn, and he walking into this portal, and he ends up in this place with this like demon looking thing. I don't know what the thing was called, but it was like this evil rabbit, or I don't know what it was. It was an evil something. It looked like a rabbit with like razor sharp teeth or something. And Lord, I can't get over it. And he has to make this deal. The entity gives him like 3 wishes, and he starts yelling out these different things, right? He's yelling out these different things. His friend is she's a seer. She has visions, and she had already drew out what was going to happen to him, right? And so she was at the part where she was experiencing deja vu with what happened to her friend. And so he makes his 3 wishes, but the thing that he did not do is set conditions on what he was stating. So I thought that was interesting, right? Because this wicked spirit was basically granting all of his wishes, but he didn't have conditions. And because he didn't have conditions, the evil entity then set the conditions and sent him back. And so the evil entity, I think one of the things he said in there was that he had all of these bad memories ever since he had blew the horn. And so he didn't want to have those memories again. And so when the evil entity sent him back, he ended up being hung by a rope. So he was literally hanging from the ceiling, and that was what the seer had drew. She had saw that he was going to be hanging and he was going to die. And so she was around long enough to where she was able to save him. However, he still ended up being in bondage by that creature because it was some necklace that ended up being on his neck. He hadn't realized it yet because he has realized that he doesn't have his memory. He doesn't recall anything because of what took place when he went in that little weird room. And so I really hope that was in episode 8. It might not. It could have been in 7, but it came to me, so I'm talking about it since I'm just talking today. Anyway, so yeah, those are the things that I took away from Wheel of Time season 3 episode 8. So if you watch it, come back here and let me know what you took away from it, because I thought it was pretty good. I was mad it was only 8 episodes because I thought it was going to be 10, but you know, maybe they need a break, and I understand that. They've been working hard for 3 years. Genevieve was really proud about that in her little sit down at the table that they had. It was a really cute conversation. But yeah, so that's what I took away from Wheel of Time season 3 episode 8. So remember, the truth will seem like a judgment, but it'll set you free. 2, sometimes the things that unlocks your gifts or unlocks your power is an emotion or a trigger. 3, the help you need sometimes will come from the place that you typically would not look, or that you would not desire to look. 4, you gotta go with your instincts, right? That's what Rand did when he decided to tell them the truth when proving who he was to the people, right? He went with his instincts instead of listening to the man that told him not to tell them the truth of who they were. He didn't think it was going to work, but Rand believed that it did. And because he believed that it did and he went with his instincts, he got the results that he knew he would get. Thank you, Lord. I forgot what point I was trying to prove with Buddy that went in there to see the little weird thing. Well, he didn't go in there to see it, but he ran into it. But hopefully I said it prior. If not, it's just how it happens sometimes. But yeah. Love you later. I might be back. Oh, I need to do. Yep, I might be back. Love you later. Bye bye.